And welcome back to yet another episode of On The Grid Podcast, Season 5, Episode 14. Today, we are obviously pre-recording this episode before the Miami Grand Prix sprint weekend that is happening whilst we're recording in a week's time, because we're recording this on Wednesday the 23rd, and the Miami Grand Prix weekend is next week. I'm your host, Adrian. Joining me as ever is Ethan Evans. Ethan, you know, with these pre-recordings, it's weird because we can't say it's race week because it's not. But because we are pre-recording this episode, it's race week.
It is, yeah, yeah. I mean, it does feel weird saying that when we haven't got a race for another week. But like you said, yeah, we are pre-recording this one. So as you're listening to this, it is fast approaching race day.
Yeah, as ever, this episode will probably be out on Thursday, which is usually media day. And you know, media day, this is a form of media, so you can have it on the Thursday, and you can listen to it before the Grand Prix weekend in the USA, in Miami this time around. Let's go back to last. I say last weekend, 2 weekends ago in pre-recording terms, but for our sake, last week, for Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Let's review our Saudi Arabian Grand Prix predictions. Why don't you kick me off? How did you get on in the star predictions? Were they successful?
They were very successful for me. I had the race to be won by under 10 seconds, and there was actually four cars within 10 seconds of the race winner. And I had double Williams points, which obviously they delivered so nicely for me.
Well, you can't have double points or triple or quadruple points for the four drivers that finished under 10 seconms. You
Well,
can't.
I think that is prejudice, actually. So I'm going to be suing.
Great, thanks. That's actually throw me off completely. For my star predictions, again, I was as successful as you was. I got both of mine correct. So I predicted Albon to be in the points, and I predicted a Leclerc podium finally. I finally manifested a Leclerc podium, and he got there. Thank you, Lord. But looking to my qualifying and my race predictions, I got 0 out of 5 in qualifying. I said it would be Piastri from Norris, from Leclerc, from Russell, from Verstappen. In matter of fact, it was Verstappen, Piastri, Russell, Leclerc, Antonelli. And in the race, I just predicted Leclerc correctly because I kind of manifested it in my star predictions, and I manifested it in my race predictions. I predicted for him to come third, and I predicted the two McLarens to be 1 and 2, with Norris winning and Piastri in second. Then I predicted Russell and Hamilton to be fourth and fifth, but it was Piastri, Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris, and Russell. So 1 out of 10 in the kind of race predictions, but 3 out of 12. Probably one of my better scores. And as I'll let you guys know, in a short while after Ethan's ran over his qualifying race predictions, currently in the head-to-head, it's not looking great.
Yeah, so for me, I had Piastri on pole, Norris second, Russell third, Verstappen fourth, and Leclerc fifth. So I only get the 1 point for Russell in third. I did have 4 of the 5 correct, just in the wrong orders. And then for the race, I had a Piastri victory, so I got that correct. And then I had Norris, Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton. So yeah, not the best for me, but I take 2 out of 10 for my predictions.
Yeah, it's certainly not looking bad for you. But obviously, when it came to our head-to-head, it's a little bit worse for wear when it comes to our head-to-head. It's quite a little bit dismal for me. So out of 60 possible points from the first 5 races, obviously we had a sprint race weekend in there as well in China. Ethan has collected cumulatively 21 points out of 60 possible, and I've gained a whopping total of 10. So Ethan is currently on over double my points tally, gaining 4 Grand Prix victories. We've only drawn one, and that was, I believe, that was Japan. Yeah, it was Japan. But firmly, you are in the driver's seat. You were last season. I think you took it personally of me kind of wiping the floor with you and kind of being on top. And if you've certainly taken that positive, you've taken that with a vengeance, and you kind of seeking a little bit of revenge in what it seems to me, because being over double my points is quite worrying. Only 5 races in.
I have. I've come up the blocks quickly. I'm just hoping I'm not peaking too early. So yeah, I'm very happy with how I've done so far. Yeah, I'll take it.
Let's move on to a little bit of a junior formulas. We've not reviewed them in a while. They've had their rounds alongside F1 in Bahrain and in Saudi Arabia. The F3 obviously only being in Bahrain. Let's talk about qualifying, the sprint race and the feature race for the Formula 3. So it was Camara that started on pole, that qualified on pole, with Callum Voisin and Wirtz in third. Ho and Del Pino fourth and fifth, Tappinen in sixth, Stramsted in seventh, Nikola Tsolov, who's obviously coming back once again, he qualified eighth, and then Giusti and I believe it was Slater. Slater on his first ever race in Formula 3 qualified in the top 10. And the sprint race, it was Nikola Tsolov that managed to make his place inside the top three count. He won the race with Slater getting a podium on debut. Tappinen made it into third, Boysen in fourth, Stenshorner in fifth, Tramnitz in sixth. Gusti in seventh, Ho in eighth, Wirtz and Stromsted rounded off the top 10 in ninth and 10th. And in the feature race, it was Camara that hung on to that kept his place at the top, very handy to himself. He finished in P1, making that pole position count. Callum Voisin finished in second from where he started. Tim Tramnitz made it up to third with Nicola Sullivan fourth, Stromsted in fifth, Gusti in sixth, Boyer in seventh, Del Pino in eighth, Ho in ninth, and I'm trying to just get the rest of the order because for some reason it cut off for me. But in Formula 3, Camara has been very impressive. Back-to-back feature race victories. And for the time being, he's 26 points in the lead over Tim Tramnitz in second in the standings. He looks very, very good. He looks the championship contender and the championship favourite at this moment in time. But then again, a Formula 3, a Formula 2 season, when it comes to the junior categories, these seasons can be seen as very long because of the gaps between them. Um, he's just hoping that he doesn't peak as early as your potential prediction, Crown.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope we can both keep it going until the end of the season. But no, seriously, he's been very impressive so far. From what I've seen, he's looked the part, and he's had the performances to back it up. So, yeah, all good signs for him, and hopefully keep it going until the end of the season.
Yeah, matter of fact, I did say 9 drivers. It was just my mistake. Tappinen was in between Tramnitz and Solov. Tuka Tappinen for ART finished in fourth instead of Nikola Solov, who finished in fifth. But obviously, looking at the standings, you've got drivers coming back: Tim Tramnitz, Callum Voisin, Nikola Solov, Matej Stenshorner. They're all inside the top 10. What have you made of, obviously the rookie drivers are there to prove a point in their first seasons and kind of following the footsteps of the likes of Gabriel Bortoleto and Oscar Piastri, just to name 2 drivers that are currently in Formula One. How do you think, kind of the non-rookie drivers that are in their second or third seasons in Formula 3, how do you think they're feeling with the challenge that the rookie drivers put on them, and kind of what can be done for them to kind of reignite a championship battle for themselves so they can propel themselves into Formula 2, into the higher of the 2 junior categories, and then potentially into Formula 1 stardom?
Yeah, I think it's a staging ground, isn't it? It's a stepping stone onto Formula One. I do have few concerns about next season about whoever is sort of the top of the class this year, just because I don't know how many seats are going to be available next season. Because if you think a lot of rookies came into the sport this year, um, and there's a number of other drivers who are touted as getting a seat. So unless a few drivers make way, where are these seats coming from? Obviously, I suppose you've got well, Cadillac or General Motors or whatever you want to call them, Andretti coming in next season. But it'll be interesting to see where the seats open up to. Because yeah, it's quite wide open at the minute. Obviously, there's only be 3 rounds in Formula Two. Um, but yeah, I do wonder where the seats are going to be. Maybe at Sauber, possibly. We don't know what the long-term vision is for Bortoleto. Uh, RB, there's always changes, so maybe there's going to be another change there, but there's not going to be a whole lot of options. Definitely not as much change as there was coming into this season.
And you've given me a lovely segue because I'm going to talk about Formula Two now. Beginning with Bahrain, as that was the round before the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, and we've not had a chance to speak about it. So in qualifying, it was Leonardo Fornaroli in his maiden season that got another pole position ahead of Victor Martins and Luke Browning. Alex Dunn in fourth, Roman Stanek in fifth, Richard Verschoor in sixth, Sami Megatunith in seventh, Beganovic, and then Dirksen. And then in the sprint race, it was Marty who I believe celebrated with Fernando Alonso under the lights of Bahrain for his sprint race victory. Um, he beat off Richard Verschoor and Dino Beganovic with Oliver Goethe, Arvid Lindblad, Rafael Villagomez, Gabriele Mini, and Leonardo Fornaroli rounding off the points finishes. Dirksen did finish in third place, so he was in where Beganovic was, but he was disqualified after one of his components was 2 millimeters below minimum height. So similarly to the fate of the likes of Lewis Hamilton in Formula One, Formula Two, and Formula Three are also strict like that, and a disqualification came Dirksen's way. But in the feature race, Fornaroli started from pole position, but it was actually Alex Dunn that got his first win in Formula Two, beating off the likes of Luke Browning and Leonardo Fornaroli. Marty finished just outside the podium places in fourth, Victor Martins in fifth, Richard Verschoor in sixth, Dino Beganovic seventh, Lindblad, Mini, and Dirksen rounded off the points finishes. And obviously, the standings after Bahrain were very tight. Fornaroli got the points for pole position, which kind of handed in the championship lead, with him being on 26 points to Alex Dunn's 25, Luke Browning's 25, and Marty's 23. Richard Verschoor was the other driver in the 20 plus point gang with 21 points, and then it was Beganovic, Martins, Dirksen, Lindblad, and Mani rounding off the top 10. On to Saudi Arabia. Jack Crawford, out of nowhere, it seemed, put his Dams car on pole position with Martins and Fornaroli once again performing very well in qualifying second and third. Browning once again was up there in fourth, Lindblad in fifth, Dunn in sixth, Marty seventh, Miney eighth, Verschoor ninth, and Stanek in 10th. And it was Arvid Lindblad in the sprint race that became the youngest ever Formula 2 winner. Obviously, that kind of changed hands so many times. We can remember the days of Teo Porcher, just to name one driver who was very young to get a race victory in Formula 2. Arvid Lindblad, another driver who was 17 to get his first victory in the sport. Marty and Dunn rounded off the podium in second and third. Verschoor actually finished the race on the road in P1, but a 5 second time penalty saw him lose the race victory and the podium, and he finished in fourth. Stanek finished in fifth with Mini in sixth, Fornaroli seventh, and Martins in eighth. But Richard Verschoor was there again in the feature race making up for what he lost in the sprint race by gaining the feature race victory and more points either way. He finished first, with Crawford unable to convert pole to a race victory as he finished second. Martins in third, Fornaroli in fourth, Marty Browning in four and in fifth and sixth, Lindblad in seventh, Dunn in eighth, Mini and Miney. Meeny, Miny. That's quite funny when I wrote that down. It did make me chuckle. But they finished in ninth and 10th. And the standings after Saudi Arabia, Richard Shaw is back in the lead of the championship, 12 points over Marty and 13 points over Fornaroli. Dunn is in fourth on 35, Browning on 33, Martans on 28, Lindblad on 24, Crawford on 20, Beganovic and Mini on 12 points each in ninth and in 10th. Richard Shaw, a name that, we've talked about so many times on the podcast when it comes to, the Formula 2 roundups, and the driver that seems to be not going away anytime soon because he's been switching so many teams. He's been back there, he's been there, he's been here, he's been everywhere. He's back at MP. And he looks to be good worth for his money. 12 points ahead of Marty in second. Like I mentioned, 13 points ahead of Fornaroli in third. Obviously, only 3 rounds have been raced, but so far so good for Richard Shaw, and he's a non-rookie driver, which is a bit of an anomaly because Fornaroli is breathing down his neck. Alex Dunn isn't too far away, same as Browning, and Lindblad's picking up form as well. These rookie drivers are certainly smelling blood, and whenever we saw consistency when it came to Paul Aaron last season. Will the consistency continue for Richard Shaw?
Yeah, that's the question. Obviously, he's been in the sport a while now. He's got a bit of experience under his belt. I think he's probably one of the most he's probably got one of the most races for in F2 history, doesn't he? But yeah, it's very tight at the top there. There's a lot, things change on a week by week basis. Obviously, when we go to Imola at the end of next month, we'll see what happens. We've got a few back to back then. So let's see how it evolves. We're only 3 races in, but it's looking pretty promising at this point.
And that's the Formula 2 and Formula 3 roundup done and out of the way for a couple of weeks. Obviously, no racing action for the VF2 and the F3 guides until they roll into Imola in a couple of weeks' time after Miami. But let's move back into Formula One scenes and let's talk about. We talked about a little bit about Cadillac, General Motors, whatever you want to call them. The FIA have announced that GM Performance power units are to be approved and are to, kind of be able to be used from 2029. The team themselves roll into the Formula One circus next year. And we already know that obviously they won't be using their own power units, but they can use their own power units from 2029. What have you made of that sort of news, Ethan? If you've seen it and if you've seen it mentioned, do you think that some other teams may take a gamble? Some of the lower teams, who are taking power units or engines from the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari. Do you think that we could see a more varied upgrade of power units from 2029?
Yeah, possibly. But then you've also got there's a Renault engine on the grid and only one team use it, so it could just be the same of that. But more options. If we can have a bit more variety on the grid, it might create better racing. Maybe each engine has its different specialty, and maybe there's different tracks that suit different engines, depending on sort of the speed of it, the altitude, everything like that. So yeah, we'll wait and see, but obviously that's a fair few years away yet.
On to another bit of news. Malcolm Wilson has been appointed by the FIA president as new deputy president, but in place of the departing Robert Reid. This doesn't kind of indicate anything to Formula One fans. I don't think. When you see changes up in the higher up roles, you're just thinking, yeah, okay, get on with it. it's not really important information when it comes to Formula One fans viewing. But then again, Malcolm Wilson could provide that bit of power that could sway some decisions here, there, and everywhere. So it could be seen as many of different factors with that appointment. Talking about how we were talking about power units, let's talk about pole positions. Let's talk about qualifying because four of the last five poles have been separated by less than a tenth. Only I believe, I can't remember which race it was. I want to say the Bahrain Grand Prix. Only that one was over a tenth. But the five races that we've had, four of them have been separated by less than a tenth. And even how does that show how the cars have developed? They're pretty much at peak, development. It seems to me that they've reached a ceiling. There's nothing more that the teams can add on really when it comes to upgrades and stuff because of how close qualifying has been and how close the competitiveness has been up and down the F1 grid.
Yeah, definitely. At least there's a bit of a competitiveness when it comes to qualifying, eh? Yeah, qualifying has been probably the highlight of this season. I think there's been a few great battles, whether you got sort of Verstappen's up in Japan, you got the battle in Australia between the McLarens. There's been a number of great qualifying battles. My favourite of which was the China sprint race. No points for guessing why that is, but yeah,
Of
it's
course,
been a
of
good.
course, of
Of
course,
course,
of
yeah, of
course, of
course.
course.
Just wait till Charles Leclerc gets his first pole, and then that will be your favorite session. So, yeah,
Yes, okay,
qualifying has
fine.
been very close.
Yes, okay, you're right. It probably will highlight my weekend and whatnot, but that's because Ferrari have been in the bin quite recently. Apart from Saudi, where Charles Leclerc's got on Ferrari's first Grand Prix podium, excluding sprints. But Lewis Hamilton did deliver a race win, so who's the real winner here? Talking about the two McLarens. I've got a little bit, before every single one of our episodes, I like to make a little bit of side notes. And under the talking points, I've got Piastri man of the moment, Norris crumbling. Ethan, what do you make of the two statements? And do you think the two statements are correct?
You've got to say it is at this point in time. Lando Norris obviously won the first race of the season and hasn't won since. So he's actually only got one second place since then as well, I think. I think the rest were, oh no, he's got two second places. He's got one in China and one in Japan. But you got to say, Piastri is the man in form at the minute, and he's the man that is really thriving. He looks like he's going from strength to strength, and if it continues, I think we've got another triple header next month. I think Imola, Monaco, Spain. That's a triple header. So if you've got sort of another three or four races, that 10-point gap, which was sort of a 20-point gap in Norris's favour, that could become 40, 50 points. And then McLaren have got a decision to make, especially if Red Bull do sort themselves out and they produce a car capable of winning races week in, week out. You've got to say Piastri's got to get the preferential treatment. He's got to be the one that gets priority. But obviously that's a way away. And it's a whole lot of if, buts, and maybes. But Piastri is definitely the man in form, and he has been fantastic all season long.
And just to round off our talking points, I saw quite a pointless stat. Max Verstappen has moved up to second in most points in F1 history, overtaking Sebastian Vettel after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. How pointless of a stat that is, because the point system has changed since the good old days, back when obviously not every driver was getting points, back when it was 10 points for a win, back when 8 points was up for a win. It's changed tremendously. Um, but FIA consistently love pushing out pointless stats. And I saw that on Formula One Twitter, and I even think they might have pinned that stat. Um, but what do you make of a stat? It does show that obviously Max Verstappen, even when he's not in the best of car, he's still performing, getting points on the board. but it's only Lewis Hamilton that tops him at this moment in time. And do you think that he will able to dethrone Lewis Hamilton in terms of that ranking?
Say that again. Cut this out. Say that again. It cut out for me.
Oh, did it? Okay. I'll do that whole segment once again. Just a final point of our talking points. I saw a very pointless stat in on F1 Twitter, on the official F1 Twitter that is, or X, whichever one you want to call it. Max Verstappen has moved up to second in most points in F1 history. And that's got to be one of the most pointless stats ever. He's overtaken Sebastian Vettel to take second place, and he's only behind Lewis Hamilton in points, in all-time points. Ethan, what do you make of the stat? And secondly, do you think that Max Verstappen will overtake Lewis Hamilton in most points in all-time history?
I think it'll be a big ask to do so. I think Verstappen has said he doesn't want to be staying in the sport for too long. So I'm not sure whether in 5 years we'll still have Verstappen in the sport. I think maybe 5 years is the maximum, but I just don't see how we can overtake him in that short time frame, especially when you think that Lewis Hamilton at least has another 2 years in him. So I don't think that he'll necessarily do it. I think it's just unreachable at this stage. If anybody can, it'll be Verstappen. But I don't think so personally.
And to round off the episode, let's look at our predictions. Let's look at our predictions ahead of the Miami Grand Prix sprint weekend. Ethan, why don't you kick off with your two-star predictions?
So for me, I've gone at four. At Haas points, so whether that's the sprint race or the Grand Prix, I think Haas will get some points. Obviously, we spoke last week about Esteban Ocon being a bit up and down, so he's due a good race. So maybe that will be it. Behrman as well has performed well, and then I've gone for Bortoleto to be the last of the finishers. So of the cars to finish, I think Bortoleto will be last. Obviously, the Sauber's the worst car on the grid, and I think that Bortoleto being the second driver, I think that fits him.
On to my three-star predictions. I've gone with Red Bull points, RB points. Sorry, you know when you write RB and you're straight away thinking Red Bull. It's not Red Bull. RB points. That's again same as you, whether that's in a sprint or in the actual race. And I've also put three different constructors on podium. So, we could see quite a spicy race. And I see that happening. But that is in the actual main race. On to my sprint qualifying predictions and my sprint predictions. So for sprint qualifying, I've gone with the two McLarens, one and two, Piastri in first, Lando Norris in second, with George Russell in third, Leclerc in fourth, and Max Verstappen in fifth. And for the sprint, I've kept the same order for the front two, Piastri over Norris, with Leclerc gaining a sprint race podium in third, George Russell in fourth, and Max Verstappen in fifth.
So for me, for sprint qualifying, I've gone for Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and Carlos Sainz. I've gone for fifth place in sprint qualifying. And then for the race itself, I've gone Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, and Hamilton. So I'm backing my driver to get into the top five.
Yeah, but when that happens, it usually doesn't come to fruition. It always happens. It's same
Well,
with me with
hopefully I'm
Leclerc.
not underestimating him because I think for China I put him down in like fourth or fifth and he won the sprint. So I'm hoping it'll be the same here again.
That is fair enough. Okay, into qualifying and into the race, I've gone with Oscar Piastri once again. I don't see anybody stopping him. Lando Norris in second, Leclerc in third, Russell fourth, and then Verstappen in fifth. And then for the race, I'm still torn. I'm still very torn. You know what? I'm changing it one more time. I've changed it three times, and I'm going to change it on record. I've still stuck with Oscar Piastri for the race win. I'm going Leclerc in second. I'm going Verstappen to do the monumental and finish in third. I've gone with Lando Norris in fourth, and I've gone with George Russell in fifth. Call me big balls. I don't care.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that. I've gone for in qualifying. I've gone for Lando Norris on pole. It's a track he runs well at. Obviously, he won there last season, and I think he could bounce back. If there's anywhere he's going to get bounced back, I think it could be here. Piastri second, Leclerc third, Verstappen fourth, Russell in fifth. And then for the race, I've gone again for Norris to lead Piastri, Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth, and Russell fifth.
Yeah. The thing is, when it came to my predictions, because I put in my star predictions three different constructors on podium, then you saw me scrambling. And I looked to my right when you were saying yours, and I was like, I've not got three constructors on the podium here. What are you doing with your star prediction? You're just throwing it away. So that is why I've gone Hail Mary and done my race predictions as it is. But then again, you're on top in predictions and I'm not. And this is probably the reason why. This is all we've got time for in episode 14 of On the Grid podcast. This was our Miami preview, pre recorded, but you'll hear this before the Grand Prix race weekend starts in Miami. We'll be back next week reviewing Miami, looking how we did on our kind of predictions a little bit later on, and rounding off what is expected to be a hotly contested sprint weekend in the USA in Miami. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.